Then we need to figure out our project area. Where are we going to be doing our resource evaluation, generally a tree inventory? And I prefer to look at construction plans and determine my own project area and where I need to do my inventory. But that's not always available. Sometimes we're so early in a project that we may just have a general area. We may have different sorts of data that come in, sometimes just a line on a piece of paper, and we take that and do the best that we can out there. Then we move into the tree inventory phase, and I think everyone on this call is probably pretty comfortable with the main components of a tree inventory. There's a full best management practice about that, but we're going to be collecting things like identification numbers, location, species, size, and condition. But there are a couple of factors to really focus on preservation projects, trees and construction. And that's the protected status of the tree. So that local ordinance, what are going to be the requirements, which trees are protected and which ones aren't, which ones will they need a permit to remove and which ones won't they? And then the suitability for preservation. I sometimes see this used different ways. The way that we use it is that this is really data about the tree and our expertise of, is this species going to be successful on this site? Is this a species that's really desirable in this area? What do we know more about this tree than is just conveyed by the diameter and condition? Let's give us another opportunity to show off our expertise. And this is different than, is there construction near the tree and this tree's not going to survive that? This is really all about the tree and not about the construction. I highly recommend using tags on these construction site projects because the construction personnel are going to need to make decisions about the trees and they may not be able to tell them apart unless they have a tag on them. And location is so important. So one of the main problems that I see arborists have getting involved in this type of work is being able to work effectively with a surveyor. So often on these projects, a surveyor is going to accurately locate these trees and be able to plot them on the construction plans. And we need to make sure our data and those locations get lined up. And this is pretty easy to do if you do it early enough. If you work with the surveyor at the beginning of the project, very difficult to do if you forget that step and try to match them up later. So after we have our resource evaluation, we're going to move on to the design phase. That's when we start looking at construction plans, what we're going to call development plan review, where we create a tree protection plan or someone else creates a tree protection plan, and maybe we write a report or some sort of documentation about this. So let's go through these a little bit. Maybe the biggest change that we're likely going to see in these new best management practices, if you compare them from the previous version, is this focus on development plan review. And what we're really focusing on is which trees are going to survive construction and which ones won't. And so it can be difficult. This is a new skill to learn for a lot of arborists. And what we're basically doing is looking at this CAD plan or at the paper plan beneath it. And these two trees here have this sidewalk coming in. And we have to be able to visualize, this is actually that tree in those plans, that when this sidewalk comes in, they're going to excavate in this area and there's going to be root damage for that. And so we're trying to predict whether these trees are going to be able to survive that or not. And that's really a lot of our arborist expertise, but it relies on us being able to understand construction plans and imagine what's going to happen in the field. So the main way that we protect trees is through tree protection zones. And these are called different things in different areas. Portland here calls them the root protection zone. Some people talk about it as the critical root zone. I suggest you use the terminology of your local ordinance, but we're going to call them tree protection zones, and Neld is really going to dig into this later. But generally, there's no construction allowed within this area, and then the construction crews can sort of do whatever they want out there. So we have, fencing that we suggest. We have different ways of calculating what that should be. But the biggest part of it is that we're now including construction plans in the tree protection zone designation. So we want to make sure that we can actually complete the construction that's planned and be able to protect our tree. So for example, I'll talk about that in a second. Then we want to go into some sort of reporting. So I have this arborist report here where I've documented what's going to happen, right? So how many trees are going to be removed and how are we going to protect the trees that are going to remain? And so this really has two different audiences, right? Because the city really cares about how many trees are going to be removed and whether or not they're going to approve this project. And then the construction team really cares about how are we going to protect these trees? What do we have to do during construction? Often at this point, there's a tree preservation plan made, a tree protection plan. We can call it all sorts of different things. This is one that I made, but most often my clients make them, or my different project partners, the landscape architect or the civil engineer makes them and includes them in their plan set with a lot of information from us. And the most information that we add are tree preservation guidelines or tree protection measures. And this is really outlining what's allowed within that tree protection zone and what's allowed outside of that tree protection zone. And so this is really important in being able to offer our expertise and get that integrated into the construction plans and what's actually going to happen out in the field.